There we go. Well, hello. A long time no see. It's been a while since I've done one of these. It's been a good while since I've done one of these. However, we have been without books for a while, or at least without a shipment of books. I'm very, very happy to say that books finally came in. Yes. Now, it isn't the full, bring me back up the full stock shipment. This shipment brings me up about a third of what I ordered. There's 126 books in this order. But still, 126 books. Oh! Anyway, enough of me. Let's get into these. Now, it bears mentioning, you have no idea, or maybe you do have an idea if you know me, how much self-control it has taken to not go into these boxes. And I have also opened them a little bit, maybe not. No, I totally did. I'm a bibliophile, of course, and sitting there staring at these boxes all day has been rough. My apologies go out to Jesse. Hello, Jesse. As it turns out, a friend and regular, Jesse, he came by, asked if the books had come in. I said, no, they haven't come in. And quite literally 5 minutes after he left the door, the books came in. So, I'm not a liar. They weren't here when you were here, but they're here now. All right, let's get into them. So with luck, I'll have some of these up on the shelves for tomorrow, Saturday. And I've got tea. I have a feeling I'm going to get very excited, and I'm going to babble a lot, and that means I'm going to get dry in the throat. So I've got peppermint tea to the rescue. So the first box we have is just a small little box. We start off with the Book of Ceremonies. This is something we had before in our shamanism section. Now, because these sell very well, I got multiples of a few. I've got the Crystal Bible series. We've got, there's book 1, book 2, and book 3. So there's book 3, there's book 2, and there's book 1. So I have them all. Don't worry if there's, if you're like, oh no, I've got to get there now. No, you don't got to get here right now. Although if you want to come by, I'm not going to complain. But I do have multiple copies of them. This way I don't run out immediately. Now, I had been asked for this book by a couple of customers, people who were interested, oh wow, there's a piece of tape stuck to it, but people who are interested in learning more about chakras. Now, the Bible series of books are really, really good for introducing you to a subject and kind of getting you started and pointing out all these points you can learn or ways that you can kind of customize it. So this is the Chakra Bible. Good thick book, and as always, the Bible series of books are just beautifully laid out. That's one thing I really must always give them, is that they do such a good job of visual presentation. They're gorgeous. They really are gorgeous. But let's get these off to the side, because these are not the be all and end all. But let's get rid of this box in a typical ceremonial fashion. Woo! Gone. Okay, so this is a box, and I'm sorry, and I remember how I said that I managed to stay out of these boxes mostly. This was one that I had to open, because I had to open one. In my defense, well, I guess maybe it's two, but in my defense, I am a bibliophile, and these things arrived at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. It is now, we're looking at about 8 o'clock p.m. here, so I made it a good few hours, 7 hours, and I only opened 2 boxes. So I think I deserve some kind of cookie. I have no cookies. So instead, I'm going to console myself with books. Okay. Now, this one, I'm afraid this box isn't going to have a huge variety, because this is some of the books that I ordered in numbers. Oh! Side note, or side tangent as some people might call it, unpoppable bubble wrap. Who does that? Why? Why would you... Sucking the fun out of life, I tell you. I'm just going to have to jump on it and sit on it, and maybe that'll pop it all. Now, in this box are some of my favorite books, and some books that I've been looking very much forward to. This one is amazing. Now, I've learned a bit more about Beverly Gray, actually. Beverly Gray, the author of this book, by the way, actually, maybe I'll start at the beginning. The Boreal Herbal is an herbal book, book on herbology for Canada. Now, if you haven't bought a book on herbology before, you may be like, yeah, well, whoop-de-ding. Most books in North America are essentially written for the U.S. You might find a little bit of information about herbs that grow very much along, like the 49th parallel, things really close to the south. But for the rest of Canada, most books on herbology are kind of pointless. The plants they're describing don't grow here, and the ones that grow here aren't even mentioned. Well, this is the answer to that. Beverly Gray, she owns, well, first off, she's an herbalist or herbologist. Either way, she's trained, she's a aromatherapist, she is a natural health practitioner, a journalist. She also owns the Aurora, no, sorry, not Aurora. I think it's called Aroma Borealis. I think it's a play on words. Aroma Borealis herb shop in Whitehorse in the Yukon. She's fabulous. She is somebody who lives up in the same region as us, and she saw that there was a need for these books, and so she printed them. Man, are they good. They are amazing. Now, because these have a habit of flying off the shelf at ludicrous speed, I ordered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Haha. There we are. Oh, and they're such a good book. I need to fangirl my face off at her one day. Now, I got another excellent book, speaking of good books. This is The Book of Stones, Who They Are and What They Teach. One of my favorite things about this book, not only is it a good, solid book filled with information and some excellent color pictures, one of the things I like the most about it is on a stone, it'll give you keywords, elements, chakras it's associated with. It'll give you kind of the most, I guess, the most basic information at the start. But then, on each stone, there's multiple authors, multiple lapidarists writing about the stones. It's kind of like having the informational resource for the stones, but you're sitting in amongst a group of, I can't remember if it's 4 or 6 people, but they're all telling you more about it, and you can usually tell a lot about their specialization, whether they're a healer, whether they do more energy work, by the attributes of the stones that they bring out or that they seem to focus on the most. I like it because it's like any other book, but it's like reading any other book in the presence of a bunch of people who are masters of their craft and art. So, very good book. I've got 3 copies of that. Well, let's get rid of this box in our usual fashion. Pew! That's just fun. That's just fun. Now, it just dawned on me, now that we're finally getting into the realm of boxes I haven't opened yet, that I need tools for this job. Now we're in the realm of outer mystery. Ooh. I have no idea what's in these boxes. Well, okay, I have a general idea. The thing is, of course, my invoice came, and the books that came are in the front, and the books that are on back order and still waiting to come were in the back of the invoice. However, the still waiting to come section of the invoice is much larger than the front section. I haven't really spent a lot of time looking. Oh, although I do have an apology. There are some customers who are waiting for Ascension Magick by Christopher Pensack. And the very fact that I've mentioned that book and sent an apologies, you can imagine what's going on. It's been back ordered. So, the next blip of shipment that comes in will contain those books. But in the meantime, I'm very sorry, but they didn't make it in on this one. Lame. Ooh. But a bunch of other fabulous things made it. I am sure that this stuff is crazy effective because it doesn't pop, but it makes me sad because it doesn't pop. Okay. Ooh, now one thing I did kind of go a little bit hog wild on, speaking of kind of basic books and introductory, like the Bible series, there's a bunch of, blank for beginners. Now, it's not just any for beginners books. It's actually a series, and it's written, in 99% of the cases, actually, it's written by big authorities in the individual field that they're talking about. So, and the books, they go really in depth. So I decided I had to go wild. I had to get all the ones I had in before, and I had to order in a bunch of new ones. Now, again, I haven't memorized the invoice. I haven't really looked through large sections of the invoice. So although I can see in this box, I've got some of the how-tos. All of them are face down, so I don't know which ones we have. Let's find out together. Now this one, obviously, because I can see a 5, an 8, and a 2 on the back, this is Numerology for Beginners. This one is authored by Jerry Bauer. It's somebody whose name I have heard before in relation to numerology, but I'm afraid I don't know her deeply. But then again, it also bears mentioning, I don't do a lot of numerology myself. I'm not very good at it. The Magics and I are not the best of friends. But if you are interested in Magics, or if you love Magics and have learned, say, Chaldean numerology and want to know more about kind of more Western style or numerology, shabam, good book for you. What's next? Ooh, Meditation for Beginners. by Stephanie Clement. By the way, you may see that she's a PhD. What the heck is she a PhD in, right? Because a person could have a doctorate in just about anything. She holds a doctorate in transpersonal psychology and has practiced meditation for over 20 years. No, I don't know everybody and everything. That's written here. But for those of you who thought that I knew Stephanie Clement personally, thank you very much for giving me credit beyond my abilities, but I certainly am not that well connected. There's 4 stacks of books in this box, and I just want to grab all the books. Clairvoyance for Beginners. People who have been looking at our Violet section, which is the psychic development section, and going, holy crap, there's nothing there. This order should help refill that quite a bit. For those of you who don't know what clairvoyance is, clairvoyance is seeing distant places. Clairaudience is hearing different places. So clairvoyance is all about kind of seeing different places. Now, sometimes, and by the looks in the back, they're talking about see true visions of your past, present, and future. It's not just seeing other places, but seeing other times. Past lives for beginners. Now, this is one that I've had a lot of questions about. A lot of people ask me about past lives. Can I, guide them through past life regression? Although I have been through a past life regression myself, that was many years ago, and I am certainly not skilled enough to do that, or I'm not trained in it. I've never made a study of it. However, this is somebody who has Douglas DeLong. So if you're interested, check this out. And as usual, check out some of these books in store. When you're in here, feel free to sit down in our seats in the front of the store and browse through the book. I'd much rather for you find out if a book is right for you here than at home. Once it's at home, I can't do a thing about it. I can't really take a return on a book that's been sold. So feel free to come in and browse while you're in the store. I'm always telling people to explore. That goes for not just the drums and the singing bowls. That also goes for the fabulousness of books. Let's move on to the next one. Speaking of, here's another one. Yet another thing I've been getting asked a lot about lately. Palm reading for beginners. This is Richard Webster. If I recall, actually, this is one I know a bit about. I think he's from, I think he's a Kiwi. I think he's from New Zealand. He lectures a lot on metaphysical topics. He's the author of a bunch of different best-selling books. That doesn't really tell you much about him. I really shouldn't be looking for. I'm just curious. If are you really a Kiwi? Did I remember that right? Yes. Richard Webster was born in Auckland, New Zealand in 1946. New Zealand is still his home. Ha ha! He's a Kiwi. Not an insult at all. I was just very impressed that I remembered that. There are times my brain surprises me, and then there's other times where I could hide my own Easter eggs. Psychic abilities for beginners. Now you'll notice that this one is a lot thicker than some of the other for beginners series. I'll put 2 side by side so you can see. But it's because there's a lot of different psychic arts, and this one is going to touch on a bunch of them and give you basic introductions to them. But if you want to, learn more, say like seeing auras or stuff like that, I suggest going to the, seeing auras for beginners. Psychic protection for beginners. They're the 3 most common types of magic or inquiries I get are people looking for ways to enhance their prosperity, ways to enhance their love life, and ways to find or increase the protection in their life. So this is going to be kind of a no-nonsense, very easy to understand English. Again, this is written by Richard Webster, our Kiwi friend. Next. Yet another thing I've been getting asked a lot about. Being so short on books for so long, I'm wondering if I'm going to spend all of these boxes going, and another subject I've been asked a lot about. Anyway, runes for beginners. This is the Norse Futhark. This is written by Alexandra Sharon. She's a second generation fortune teller. If I recall, I think she's a witch, but I can't remember what trad she's from. I know that she's a tradition witch. She's a trad witch. Actually, I can't do this with every book. I can't go in and tell you everything about the authors. I gotta get a move on. Otherwise, you're gonna get really bored and sick and tired of listening to me. Shamanism for beginners. This one's written by James Andretti. If I recall, I can't remember what tribe or nation he's from. but I know that he's written a few books on it. He's from kind of the more desert area of the States, like Arizona or something, but don't quote me on that, I can't remember. I just finished saying I can't do this for every author, and here I am. I'm sorry. Oh! Okay, so for those of you who know me, Scott Cunningham is one of my favorite authors. He made a lot of the craft accessible outside of the various different trads. And he took his lumps for that, because a lot of people were very upset that he was sharing deep, dark secrets. Now, this is one of the earlier books he wrote, if I recall. I'm just looking for the original year. 1982. Woo! But this is Magical Herbalism. This was one of his first books on herbology, and it is still phenomenal. I love it. Now there are some people who aren't interested, say, in learning Wicca or learning various different spiritualities behind magical practice, but just want to learn magical practice. And there are those people who have religious basis for their practice, but would like to know or kind of refine their methodology in magic and in energy use. Magical Power for Beginners is a great way to do it. It's written by Dora Lipp. Now, Dora Lipp is a name I definitely know. She's a Gardnerian witch. For those of you who don't know, Gerald Gardner was somebody who was a huge figure in the kind of the witchcraft renaissance in the late 50s, early 60s, and moving into the 70s. So, yeah, excellent. For those of you who've been waiting, one thing I've been getting in are next year's almanacs. I got some Witches Spell a Day almanacs. If you've never had one of these are about $17 Canadian usually. Yep, they're awesome. They're still the same price, $16.99. These, they're like most other almanacs, but they have kind of spells per day. It has where the moon is. So, say on January 16th next year, the moon will be in Taurus it has a void of course at 1:34 p.m. It moves into Gemini at 8 o'clock p.m. on that day. But then it has a little ritual or a little spell. These books are great. Even if you don't do every single spell every single day, I have gotten these before and just browsed through, taking them as inspiration for spellcraft, or just out and out copies straight out, or got inspired by them. These are fabulous books. I really do enjoy them. Here's another one I like. Now these ones tend to be a lot more kind of article-y, a lot less almanac-y, but they're phenomenal articles. I think one of my favorite ones ever came out it was the early 2000s, but they did this, one of the articles in it was about kind of general archetypes of witches, and it was written with wit and humor, but at the same time it was written with compassion. They tend to have a lot of different authors. It's not like these Witches' Companions are written by one author, they're written by multiples, all sorts of authors from a lot of different styles of craft, etc. Definitely worth a browse. To Walk a Pagan Path, Practical Spirituality for Every Day. Hey, if anybody who's watching has taken my Wicca 101 class, we end the class on Class 6A, we discuss all about living pagan and what it's like and challenges that you face, or ways to just bring your spirituality into your everyday existence. This is a book all about that. Fabulous. There's some more Witches' Companions. And these, by the way, the Witches' Companions, the Magical Almanacs and stuff, these are all the 2019s. Speaking of an almanac, here are the Sabbat almanacs. And then these contain rituals and recipes and crafts and activities. They also carry a bunch of little stories and kind of seasonal lore as well. And of course, they're like most almanacs, if I recall, they have kind of a central section with planetary guidance. Let me double check. Oh, I think I'm confusing this with the one I tend to get more often myself, the Magical Almanac. But these ones are, they may not have a lot on the planetary stuff, but gosh, they have a lot of information. Wow. Okay. I have 2 or 3 of them. I may or may not have less as soon as I get myself one. Oh, now this is one that I had in earlier, and I had some great reviews actually from the customer who bought it. Mediumship, Scrying, and Transfiguration. It's written by Diana Palm. Now, if I recall, she's not a Wiccan or anything like that. I think she's, seems to me she's like a Reiki practitioner, an energetic worker. Cool, she works with Paranormal researchers, priests, medicine men, and other healers throughout the world to continue to expand her gifts in working with the spirit world. She lives in Minnesota. Now, back to, and I'm going to fangirl every single time I see something of his, back to Scott Cunningham, Earth, Air, Fire, and Water. This is technically second in a series on elemental magic. More techniques in elemental magic, or natural magic, he calls it. These are fabulous. This is, and I think the first book was called Earth Power. These are where I got a lot of my first spells from, like actual, well, once I was practicing Wicca. My first, I guess, low magic spells. They're wonderful. And he discusses making bind runes and he's fabulous. Now for those of you who want more experience in chakras, here we have Chakras for Beginners. It's not a hugely thick book. Again, this is kind of a for beginners. However, if you already know the basics and would really love to hear something you haven't heard 10,000 times already, Chakras Beyond Beginners. Again, this is another book that I sold to a customer and had amazing review from it. So, fabulous. Color Magic for Beginners. I've had a few conversations with people in the Candle area about, you know, how color connotation in magic works and how color magic works. Again, this is written by our Kiwi friend Richard Webster. But it's awesome. Not only does he look at the different kind of categories of colors and what different associations of colors, he looks for ways to analyze things like what do the colors of a national emblem say, how to bring color magic into your life by dressing. Most of us just get dressed for the day. We get dressed to look good. We get dressed for the weather. Very rarely do we put a lot of magical thought into, or a lot of thought into dressing for magical or energetic purposes. But he definitely looks at bringing more magic into your life through color. We're gonna pause because my pizza's here. You heard me right, I'm eating pizza.